Omaha, Nebraska, a city full of life, families, and dreams. But in some parts, violence hides in the shadows. This is the story of a young man named Brandin Princole. He was only 17 when his life was taken. A boy with a future gone too soon. Brandin was shot on a quiet afternoon. A drive-by, no warning, no chance to run. His family and friends never got to say goodbye. Today, his case is still unsolved. No arrests, no answers, just pain and memories. But his story is not forgotten. The people of Omaha still remember. His family still fights for justice. This is more than just a crime story. This is about a community that won't give up. A mother who won't stop searching. A call for justice that still echoes. Now let's go back. Let's see who Brandin was before that terrible day. Before the headlines. Before the police tape. Before the heartbreak. Brandin Princole was a son, a brother, and a friend. His life was full of promise. He had dreams, just like any teenager. He grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, a city with good and bad parts. Some neighborhoods were peaceful and safe. Others were tougher, rougher. But Brandin had his family. They loved him. They tried to give him the best they could. Brandin's mother, Annette, was his rock. She cared for him, guided him, and tried to keep him on the right path. His father, Robert, was a strong presence in his life. His sisters, Nazy, Ika, and Nicole, shared a deep bond with him. They fought like siblings do, but they always had each other's backs. Brandin had a bright personality. People liked him because he was funny, full of energy, and easy to talk to. He wasn't the loudest person in the room, but he had a way of making people feel comfortable. His friends say he was the one who could make you laugh, even on a bad day. He was also kind. He cared about the people in his life. If someone needed help, he would be there. If a friend was feeling down, he would try to cheer them up. His heart was big. Brandin had hobbies and passions. He loved sports. Maybe it was basketball, maybe football. He liked to stay active. He also had an interest in music. Sometimes he talked about what he wanted to do when he got older. Maybe he would play sports. Maybe he would make music. Maybe both. He was still figuring things out. Still growing. Still learning. Like every teenager, he had his good days and bad days. Some days, life felt full of possibility. Other days, it felt hard. But one thing was clear, Brandin had a future. A future that was taken away too soon. But before we get to that tragic day, we need to talk about what happened before. Teenage years can be hard. For some kids, it's just about grades, sports, and friendships. For others, life feels heavier. There are struggles, pressures, choices that can change everything. Brandin was a teenager trying to find his way, trying to figure out who he was. He was smart, funny, and kind, but like many young people, he made mistakes. School life. Brandin was a student at Burke High School. It was a place with good teachers, sports teams, and students with big dreams. But it was also a place where some kids felt lost. At school, Brandin had friends, people who liked him. But like many students, he had ups and downs. Maybe some days he focused in class. Maybe other days, his mind was somewhere else. School wasn't always easy. There were challenges, pressures, and decisions that weren't always the best. September 2012, the mistake that changed everything. One day, everything changed. September 17th, 2012. A normal school day until it wasn't. Brandin brought a handgun to school. No one knows exactly why. Maybe he felt like he needed protection. Maybe it was a choice made without thinking about the consequences. But the moment the school found out, everything fell apart. The consequences. Brandin was caught. The police were called. He was arrested. It wasn't just about school anymore. Now it was the law. He was charged with possession of a firearm on school grounds. A serious crime. A crime that could follow him for a long time. School was no longer an option. He was expelled. His time at Burke High School was over. Everything changed. He was sent to Parish Alternative School. A different school, a different environment. A place for students who had been in trouble. Some kids turned their lives around there. Others felt stuck. For Brandin, the change was hard. He wasn't with his old friends. He wasn't in a place that felt familiar. His future felt uncertain. Maybe he thought about what happened over and over again. Maybe he wished he could take it back. But life doesn't give you do-overs. It just keeps moving. And 1 month later, Brandon's life would take a tragic turn. October 12th, 2012. It started like any other day. Brandon woke up, got dressed, and stepped out into the world. Maybe he had plans. Maybe he was just going with the flow. But he didn't know. He didn't know that this would be his last day. The sun rose over Omaha. People went to work. Kids went to school. Brandon was out, walking through the neighborhood. Maybe he was thinking about his future. Maybe he was thinking about his past. He was heading to a friend's house, North 46th Street and Larimore Avenue, a place he had probably walked to before. A normal part of his life. Everything felt calm. Just another day. But that changed in seconds. A car rolled down the street. No one knows if Brandon noticed it. No one knows if he felt something was wrong. Then, gunfire. Shots rang out. Loud. Sharp. Fast. The car didn't stop. It kept going. Brandon fell. People screamed. Neighbors looked outside. Some ran to help. Others called 911. A young life was slipping away right there on the pavement. Sirens filled the air. Police. Paramedics. They found Brandon lying there. Shot. Bleeding. They rushed him to the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Doctors worked fast. They tried to save him, but it was too late. Brandon was gone. 17 years old. His life ended in a moment. News spread fast. His family got the call. His mother. His father. His sisters. Shock. Disbelief. How? Why? Who would do this? Friends started calling each other. Did you hear? No, it can't be true. But it was. Brandin Princole was dead. Another young life lost to gun violence. And the people who loved him were left with nothing but questions. The news spread fast. A shooting. A young man. Brandin Princole. Gone. His mother, Annette, got the call. The kind no parent should ever get. Her son had been shot. He didn't make it. There was no warning, no time to prepare. One moment he was out, walking in the neighborhood. The next, he was just gone. His father, Robert, felt the weight of the words. His sisters, Naziika and Nicole, tried to understand what couldn't be understood. Brandon had been here, laughing, talking, living. And now he wasn't. Friends started calling each other, some crying, some silent, unable to find the right words. It didn't feel real. Just days ago, they had seen him. They had plans, jokes, memories. Now, all they had were questions. Neighbors stood outside, shaking their heads. Some had heard the shots. Some had seen the car speed away. Everyone had an opinion. Some said it was random. Some said it wasn't. Some whispered about trouble, about past conflicts, about things that could have led to this. But nobody had real answers. The community felt the loss. Brandon wasn't just another news story. He was a son, a friend, someone they knew. He had a face, a name, a life that had been cut short. People wanted to do something. They wanted to show they cared. So they gathered. On October 14th, just 2 days after the shooting, a vigil was held. Candles flickered in the night. Faces lit up, some with tears running down their cheeks. People stood together, holding hands, bowing heads. Some prayed. Some spoke. Some just stood in silence, staring at the spot where it happened, at the street where Brandon had taken his last breath. It wasn't just about mourning. It was about remembering, about standing against violence, about saying, this isn't okay. They wanted answers. They wanted justice. They wanted the people responsible to be found. The media came. Reporters held microphones, cameras rolled. Headlines flashed across the screen. A 17-year-old boy, a drive-by shooting, a grieving family, another case of gun violence. Some told Brandon's story. Others focused on his past, on the mistake he made weeks before. The family didn't care about headlines. They cared about their son, their brother. They cared about finding the truth. Someone had done this. Someone had taken Brandon's life. And they weren't going to stop until they knew who. The streets felt different after that day. The sound of sirens hit harder. Parents held their children closer. Friends watched their backs. The pain was fresh. The fear was real, and the killer was still out there. The police arrived quickly that day. Officers taped off the area, marking the scene with yellow lines and numbered signs. Shell casings lay on the ground. The street was quiet, except for the murmurs of neighbors and the distant hum of sirens. Another crime scene. Another teenager lost. Detectives started asking questions. Did anyone see the shooter? Did anyone recognize the car? Someone had to know something. But in neighborhoods like this, fear kept lips sealed. People wanted justice, but they also wanted to be safe. Speaking up wasn't easy when the wrong words could bring the wrong attention. The case moved forward, but slowly. Officers knocked on doors, talked to witnesses, pieced together the moments before and after the shooting. Some said it was a dark-colored car. Some said it was silver. Some said it had tinted windows. The details blurred together. Security cameras were checked, but nothing clear enough to identify who was inside the car. No faces, no names, just a vehicle that disappeared as quickly as it had come. There was no known fight before the shooting, no argument that people could point to. It wasn't a robbery. Whoever pulled the trigger didn't try to take anything. They came to kill, and they succeeded. The Omaha Police Department called for help. They asked the public to come forward. They needed witnesses, information, anything that could break the case open. Weeks passed, then months. A reward was announced. $25,000 for anyone who could lead them to the person responsible. It was a big number, enough to make people think twice, enough to make someone talk. But no one did. For Brandin's family, the silence was unbearable. Someone knew the truth. Someone had seen something. But the streets had their own rules. Justice wasn't always about the law. Tips came in, but none led to an arrest. Some names were whispered, but nothing stuck. Without clear evidence, without a witness willing to testify, the case remained open but unsolved. Brandin's name joined the list of Omaha's cold cases. Another young life lost. Another family left waiting. But his mother, his father, his sisters, they weren't giving up. They didn't just want justice. They needed it. Time passed, but the pain didn't fade. Brandin's family carried his loss with them every day. His mother, Annette, woke up each morning knowing her son wasn't there. His father, Robert, looked at old photos, remembering the boy who should have grown into a man. His sisters, Nazy, Ika, and Nicole, lived with a space in their hearts that nothing could fill. The world moved on, but for them, life had changed forever. Brandin's name wasn't in the news anymore. There were no new updates, no new arrests. The case stayed open, but leads dried up. Detectives had other cases, other murders, other families waiting for answers. The reward was still there, $25,000, but money wasn't enough to make someone talk. His family refused to let his memory fade. They kept speaking his name. They told his story. They reminded the world that Brandin was more than a statistic, more than a headline. People in the community didn't forget either. Some wore t-shirts with his face on them. Some lit candles on the anniversary of his death. Some shared memories, small moments that still felt alive. And then, something bigger started to happen. Brandin's story became more than just about him. It became a call for change. His family spoke out about gun violence, about the young lives lost too soon, about the killers who walked free because fear kept witnesses silent. They pushed for action, for something to stop this from happening again. Community groups got involved. Some focused on keeping kids off the streets. Some worked to get guns out of the wrong hands. Others simply offered support. A place to talk, a place to grieve, a place to heal. His name was spoken at rallies, at meetings, at church services. His face was on posters, on social media, on news clips that resurfaced every year. People weren't just mourning anymore. They were fighting for something better. A few organizations started programs in his honor. Some were small, scholarships, mentorship programs. Others focused on bigger changes, preventing youth violence, helping kids find a different path. But no matter how much awareness was raised, one thing remained the same. Brandin's killer was still out there, and his family was still waiting for justice. Brandin's story is not the only one. Across Omaha, across the country, there are families just like his. Families with empty chairs at the dinner table, unanswered phone calls, birthdays that come and go without candles to blow out. Some cases make headlines for weeks. Others fade fast, buried under new tragedies. But the pain never fades for the people left behind. They still wake up every morning hoping for answers. The numbers are staggering. Every year, hundreds of murders go unsolved. In some cities, nearly half of all homicides never lead to an arrest. The cases grow cold. The files sit in storage. The names turn into statistics. For detectives, the biggest challenge is silence. People see, people know, but fear keeps them quiet. Maybe they worry about retaliation. Maybe they don't trust the police. Maybe they think speaking up won't change anything. But silence is what keeps killers free. Experts say it takes more than just police work to solve these cases. It takes the community. It takes people who are willing to stand up and say, I saw something. It takes trust that coming forward won't make them the next target. In some cities, new programs have been put in place to protect witnesses. Anonymous tip lines, rewards, safe houses for those at risk. These efforts help, but they don't always go far enough. The fear is real, and it's not easy to break. The people who kill and walk away count on that fear. They count on people staying quiet. And that's why families like Brandin's keep fighting. They don't just want justice for him. They want justice for all the others too. They want people to understand that every unsolved murder means a killer is still out there. That every silent witness is one less chance to catch them. That every time justice is delayed, another family suffers. No one can bring Brandin back, but his story can serve as a reminder. A reminder that no life should be forgotten. No case should be left without answers. And no family should have to live with questions that never get solved. The people who love Brandin still have hope. Hope that one day someone will speak up. Hope that one day justice will come. Brandin Princole should have had a future. He should have graduated. He should have chased his dreams. He should have had more time. Instead, his life ended on a quiet street, in a burst of gunfire at just 17 years old. His family lost a son, a brother. His friends lost someone who made them laugh. His community lost a young man who still had so much ahead of him. His killer is still out there. The case is still open. The reward is still on the table. And his family is still waiting. There's a spot on North 46th Street where his life ended. Some still stop there, remembering. His name is spoken in prayers, in conversations, in quiet moments when his absence is felt the most. But Brandin is more than a memory. He's a call to action. A call for people to speak up. A call for justice. A call to stop the cycle of violence before another family suffers the same pain. No one can change the past, but the future is still unwritten. And for Brandin's family, for his community, the fight is not over. Justice is still waiting, and someone out there holds the key to it.